goal of this tutorial is to help you better understand the R&D screen inside of Capsim. Now, R&D is really important because this drives the products for your team. If the R&D for the products is wrong, it really messes up the rest of the company and causes some significant issues. So what I have here is we're going to walk through a hypothetical team's decisions for the next round in the game. Now, currently this team has got two products, Able and A2. When you look at the products here, the first things you have to make a decision on is the performance and the size. Now, if you look at the performance and size, you can see it's 7.3 for the performance and 12.7 for the size. Those translate over here to what's called the Perceptual Map, which is just another name for the graph here. On the graph, you see two circles. The circle on the top left is what's called the low-tech customer market. The circle on the right is the high-tech customer market. These two markets actually want very different kinds of things. Right now with this company, they're kind of splitting the difference by having Able and A2 sort of in the overlapping area on the circle here. This is pretty typical for the early part of the game because you have these circles that are pretty overlapping. As the game progresses, you'll see these circles kind of start to drift apart, and you have to target your products more specifically on either the high or the low tech. But let's kind of see how they're going to move along. What we do to model this is create a file in Excel, and we're going to actually look at the performance and size and see how far it moves each round. So first, let's do the low tech. When we go to the foundation fast track, we can see a lot of different statistics on how far we've moved so far in class. What I'm going to go to is scroll down to the low tech market segment. So what I'm looking at here, if you look in the upper right corner, it says round 2. So December 31st, 2018, what did the customer actually want? The problem we have here is that while it gives us what we wanted in 2018, on December 31st, these are actually going to change over the course of the year. Because it changes over the course of the year, you have to continually R&D your product to get it to move to where the ideal position is going to be. So let's look at that in my chart. So right now the ideal position is 5.8 and 14.2. So I'm going to go over to my Excel file for round 2 and round 3. And low tech, I'm going to input here the low tech ideal performance and low tech ideal size. So the low tech ideal performance is 5.8. And the low tech ideal size is 14.2. So this is round 2 or 2018. In round 3 or 2019, these are going to both be changed. The low tech market moves by 0.5 each round. So the performance is going to get bigger by 0.5, and then the size is going to get smaller by 0.5 because the customers want to have a higher performing product at a smaller size each round. And so looking forward here, I see that if I'm planning to be in the ideal position at the end of 2019, I really want to be at 6.3 and 13.7. If I look back at the perceptual map here, I can see that I'm actually pretty far ahead. Right now I'm at 7.3 and 12.7. 7.3 and 12.7. So that's actually pretty far ahead here. If I kind of pull this forward and keep on going to the rest of the game, you can see how this changes. So round 4 or 2020, round 5 or 2021. So right now I'm actually in the ideal position in the low tech market right here, which is quite a bit ahead of where I need to be. The reason why I'm so far ahead of where I should be is because of the high tech market. So let's go back and look at the high tech market and what they actually want. So here I'm back on the foundation fast track. I'm going to scroll down to the high tech market. The high tech market here has its ideal performance and size. So ideal performance is 8.8. So I'm going to do 8.8. And the ideal size is 11.2. Now for the high tech market, this actually is going to move faster than the low tech market. So instead of doing plus 0.5, I'm going to do plus 0.7. In other words, the performance is going to increase faster than the low tech is. For size, I'm going to subtract 0.7 because the size is going to get smaller each round. Then I take these two and I copy them on over to the right. So currently I'm at 7.3 and 12.7, so I'm actually behind in this market. I'm more on the line with like the round 1 ideal position rather than the round 5 ideal position. And that's kind of what we're doing in the game here. Because it's early on, you kind of are splitting the difference. The products are sort of clustered in the middle here. The ideal low tech would be right in the middle. Ideal high tech would be right on the bleeding edge, right up here on the front. So Able is really kind of just sort of sitting there trying to compromise and be the best of both worlds, or sort of medium of both worlds here. When A2 comes out, you can see A2 is actually pretty well positioned to be a low-tech product. It's right on the front edge, so they can just let it sort of sit there over time as the circle scoots down over time. So that's performance and size. Now, performance and size influence another variable, which is called age. Age is also really critical in the game. If you look at what each market segment wants, they have very specific desires for age. The low-tech product people want an ideal age of 3 years old. So if you look at our products are currently right at 2.8 for able, which is just about perfect. So that's awesome. So if I was able, I would not want to move my performance and size and drop my age because the age is perfect right now. Now if I wanted to go for the high-tech market for able, I would be a little bit more difficult area. So if I go down to my high-tech, you see the high-tech ideal age is actually 0. So they want a product that's brand new, which obviously able is not brand new. If I wanted to make able more appealing to my high-tech customers, I could go ahead and move it. So let's say I bump it ahead a little bit. Let me just go a tiny little change, 7.4. What happens every time I change the performance or the size, I start an R&D project. Okay, recalculate here, and you can see on my age profile that I'm going to finish this tiny little bump in March of 2019. In other words, if I look down here, my product's going to get older until March hits. Once March hits, the age of my product drops in half. So it was 1.9, so it's going to go down to a little bit below 1. After that revision date hits, it's going to continue getting older. So you can see that by making a small change, I'm going to drop my age, and it's going to end up pretty much where I am at the beginning here. If I was going to make a bigger jump, you'd see it's a little bit different. Let's say I want to match A2. I'm going to make my products exactly the same to make it a little bit easier to manage. So now I have able hopping down to where A2 is at. Because I'm moving it more, my revision date gets a little bit later. Before I was looking at March, and now I'm looking at May. If I was going to try and make this into a high-tech product, I could bump it ahead even more. So let me look at my Excel file and find a good position. Let's say I want to be the ideal position for 2019 right here. So I want to have 9.5 and 10.5. So let's do that. I'll change my performance to 9.5 and change my size to 10.5 and recalculate. Now you see able has jumped all the way from the middle to the very bottom right corner, which is really the ideal at the end of this coming round 2019, which is what it says right here, 2019. The problem that I have with this is that if you notice here, the age profile never drops. It's because this project is going to take more than 1 year. If you look at the revision date, instead of finishing in this year, which is 2019, it's going to finish in August of 2020. In other words, it's going to take over a year and most of the next year as well. So what's going to happen with this particular jump is that if my product is still R&D'ing at the end of the year, I can't touch it until it finishes that R&D process. And you actually can see an example of this in A2 down here. If you look at A2, you see that I can't type in any values. That's because I designed this product, or this product was designed in the previous round, and it didn't finish R&D. A2 will actually finish in March of this year. So next year I can modify it, but this year I can't. So you get into problems whenever you have R&D projects lasting a really long time, and generally speaking, it's best to try and finish them inside of a single year. So let me back off a little bit here until I can get able to go as high-tech as possible without crossing over. So I'm going to back off by 0.5 in both of these cases. So I'm going to make the size smaller and the performance smaller and the size larger. I hit recalculate, and you can see able now is kind of backing up a little bit. Instead of finishing in August, it's finishing in May, but it's still 2020. So I'm going to back it off a little bit more. Let's take off another 0.5. So now I'm going to be 8.5 and 11.5. Now I see that my product is going to finish R&D in December. So I'm going to take the entire year to design a new product and get my plant ready to go. And when it hits the 10th of December, the age is going to drop in half, and my product is going to be ready to go the next year in this new position. If I push this any further, it's not going to change, and it's going to be exactly what it is now for 2 years instead of just 1 year. Now, one misconception that often happens is that when you R&D, you think your product may not sell, which is just not true. When you're in the middle of an R&D project for an existing product, your product is going to keep on selling. It just sells at the old position. Think of it this way, right? When a car maker comes out with a new car, they're not going to stop selling the previous one while they're developing the next one. Instead, they sell the old version while they work on the new version out here. Now, the last thing in the game is what's called MTBF. MTBF has a range as well. So we look at reliability. In the high-tech market, they want it from 1700 to 2300. In the low-tech market, they want it from 1400 to 20,000. So in this, because I'm targeting low-tech, I'm keeping it at 20,000 right now with Able. If I wanted to make it a high-tech, I could change this to a 3, and then it would change the MTBF to the higher ratio, which makes it look more like a high-tech product. Now when I bump that up, you notice that the cost of materials actually increases. That's because MTBF is just a way of referring to the quality of materials that you're using. If I change this down to 1700, you'll see that my product cost is going to be lower than it was with the higher quality of components. So instead of $16, it's now about $14, $15. Generally speaking, what I found in the way that Capsim works is that you almost never get a lot of benefit from cutting the quality of your product. The simple solution is usually just to keep that as high as possible for your market. So if you're targeting low-tech customers, keep it at 20,000. If you're doing both high and low customers, do 20,000. If you're just targeting high customers, to keep it at 23,000. There's really not a lot of benefit to cutting the material cost down. Generally speaking, the benefit in terms of sales is going to outweigh the cost cutting. Now the last thing to look at before we go off of this video looking at R&D is think about how to weigh the benefit of these different choices that you're making. If you look in the low-tech segment, you can see that it's ordered price, age, reliability, and position. In the high-tech market, it's ordered position, age, price, reliability. What that means is that each market segment has different preferences. If you're targeting a high-tech product, ideal position is very, very important. That is the number one thing you can do to make a product good. Number 2 is age. They want it in the right position with very low age. Now if you compare this to the low-tech product position is the very last thing. In other words, positioning is not that critical for low-tech. As long as it's inside the circle, you're pretty much okay. Instead, what you want to focus on are the other things like age. Age is probably the most critical thing for low-tech R&D decisions here. Price is important, but age is typically the one that gets people in trouble. If you look at age, they want it to be an ideal age of 3. What this means is that you can't hit the ideal position every single round. If you R&D every round to be at the exact ideal position, you're going to drop your age by half every single round. What that means is that your product is going to get younger and younger and younger until it hits about a 1 to 1.5, and at that point it just kind of hovers around that, bouncing up and down as you do your R&D projects. But you really want to get it around 3. So really you need to R&D basically every other year and bump the position just to make it have the age drop to a good range. So it kind of hovers between 2 and 4. And if you look at age, there's really no change between a 2 and a 4. They're sort of equally above and below are the same benefit or same hurt to your company. So anyway, so that was a brief overview of how R&D works with the Capsim program.